Nick, I just want to let you know we do have quorum. We are still missing 3 other individuals, but hopefully will. I'm seeing some come on now.
Thank you, Nicole. I guess we'll give it a couple minutes.
We're just waiting on LaShante, but otherwise everyone else is here.
Great. So I'm looking at the clock and I see it is 3 o'clock and we do have a quorum. Perhaps we can get started. Okay. So I want to introduce myself. I know some of you. My name is Nick Berger. I'm the Senior Director of Student Programs here in the County Office of Education. And today, Director Bachikis is unassigned and she asked me to sit in with this group, and I'm going to go through the agenda. I will report out on some of Becky's items, and it's a pleasure to be here. I also want to throw out if there's any protocols that I am missing. I know that different meetings have different protocols, so I have very thick skin. You can let me know if I forgot to do a public comment or if there's anything that we need to make sure we include in today's meeting.
Don't worry, Nick. We have Nicole and we often have Jill Ray, and between the 2 of them, they'll keep us on the straight and narrow.
Very good. Excellent.
Usually do roll call introductions, all the members, and then others can introduce themselves in chat. If you're ready.
Yes, perfect.
See Matt.
Sorry, everybody. Hold on. There we go. Hi, Matt Malone, Chief Counsel, Contra Costa County Superior Court.
Melissa.
Hi, good afternoon. Melissa Clavoon. I'm an assistant sheriff with the Sheriff's Office.
Patrice.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Patrice Guillory, Director of the Office of Reentry and Justice at the Probation Department.
Dr. Walker.
Bill Walker, Director of Government Relations for the Health Department.
Shayla. Shayla, you're muted if you want to introduce yourself.
It looks like she's having technical difficulties.
Okay.
She's
I
going to
saw
log
Lynn
back
there
in
for
again.
1 second. I saw Lynn, but I don't know if she jumped. Oh, there she is.
Everybody, I'm Lynn Mackey. I'm the County Superintendent of Schools. Nice to see you all.
Would you still be voting on behalf of Lynn, Nick?
Depends on when the vote is because I'm only here for a short time and
Okay.
then Nick's my proxy.
Got it. Okay.
Thank you.
That's it. And
Was that roll
others
call?
want to introduce- If others want to introduce themselves in chat, but otherwise you're welcome to proceed.
Okay, very good. So I see folks are introducing themselves in the chat, so thank you for being here. Item 1, welcome, introductions and announcements. Are there any announcements that anyone would like to make for this item? Okay, no announcements. Item 2 is public comment. These are items that are under the jurisdiction of the RJOB Data Subcommittee, but not on the agenda. Do we have any public comment? I'm not seeing any hands raised or any cyber hands raised for public comment. So we will go to item 3 on the agenda. Item 3 is approval of the record of actions. Included in the packet that we all got was the September 23rd, 2021 Data Subcommittee meeting notes and records. this is an item we do need to take a vote on. Is there any, and with that, do we need public comment, Nicole? For this item?
Yes, we could open it up for public comment before we take a vote. Or sorry, after the motion, I guess you could take public
Yes.
comment.
So I don't see any public comment. Is there a motion to approve the record of actions?
I move approval.
Thank you, Bill Walker. Do we have, Nicole, do you do this part or do I do this part?
You do it,
Okay, thank you,
and I'll do the
Nicole.
roll, I'll do the roll call vote after you get your second.
Very good. Okay, so do we have a second for this motion?
I second Shayla Bonner.
Thank you, Shayla Bonner. So can we do a roll call?
Nick, well, I guess Lynn, if she's still here.
I abstain. I wasn't at the meeting.
Melissa,
Yes.
Patrice,
Yes,
Dr. Walker,
Yes.
Shayla,
Yes.
motion carries.
Oh, great, thank you. So thank you. So the item 3, we have approved the record of actions. Item number 4 is updates to the mayor's conference meeting. And Patrice, did you want to start with that item?
I can take it. Thank you, Nick. So we are still on schedule to present to the mayor's conference next Thursday, November 4th at 6:30 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting. The link, my understanding, the link has gone out, but we'll make sure it gets out to all of the our job members so that way you all have an opportunity to attend if you like. Right now, we're in a bit of a conundrum because we have lost our second presenter. Initially, we had both of our co-chairs, Chief French and then also Tanisha Walker, set and scheduled to present. But unfortunately, we have lost our co-presenter. So bringing this forward to the subcommittee to have some discussion or deliberation about our future presentation, if we should make suggestions or recommendations of new presenters or of others either on this committee or of the full body that we would like to approach to fill in for that slot. But all in all, the presentation is done, it's completed. All the materials are ready to go. We just need to have presenters ready to go as well.
Are you looking for nominations or suggestions?
Both, yes.
I'm
So
wondering
just
about,
this is not a formal process of we're voting on any particular individual. It is at this moment just it's a scheduled presentation, and it's best to hear from the committee that sort of organize the logistics around it, who you all feel are best fit to make the presentation.
how would you feel about making the presentation? You're such a great presenter.
Oh, well, thank you for that, that wonderful thought there. However, we have had some talks about that internally. And given that I actually serve on the body as proxy to the chief, it would primarily be viewed as as probation giving as being a co-presenter. And this was really the body itself, and the recommendations were really driven by a lot of the community representatives on this body. So as much as I would not mind, and I love the work that we do, I think it's befitting that we, look at other messengers who can really set the tone and the framing from community as to why our requests are so important. So I'll have to respectfully decline.
Sorry, Patrice, did you have any ideas or recommendations for who we might consider?
I did not. A lot of my work on this committee is somewhat new. So I was not quite sure of who in the past, some of the energy and the, engagement of some of the other members, I'm not completely privy to. A lot of the folks here have been on this body for quite some time. So I'm going to sort of defer to the others and their recommendations.
Thank you, Patrice.
Mhm.
So maybe now this would be the time if there is anybody who has any thoughts. We would love to hear from folks. So I know Director Bachikis is not here at today's meeting. She did, in anticipation of this conversation, gave me the authority to discuss having her present. She did discuss that she's very familiar with the information to be presented and said she would be happy to step up to the plate and do that should this group feel like she's the right person.
I nominate Vicky.
Second.
Becky
I do agree with
Bachikis.
that. Yeah.
Is there anybody, I know we're not taking a vote on this. It sounds like, Bill, thank you for seconding that. It sounds like I haven't heard anybody say that that's not a good idea. Is there, and I know we're not taking a vote, maybe now is the time, if anybody does have any other ideas or any concerns, this would be a good time to say it. Otherwise, we could add Becky Bachikis to the as a co-presenter. Okay. It sounds like I will be able to tell Becky to prepare to be a co-presenter at the mayor's conference. Is it next week? I believe it's next week. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you, group. I appreciate that. I'm going to move on to the next item. Item 5 is discussing the data from the local justice system stakeholders. And I think the first presenter or the probation department Q3 2021 youth intake data. And Denise, I think you were going to present that.
Yes, I am. If you can take a look at your agenda packets, everyone, beginning on page 7 are the graphics that speak to the juvenile intakes that probation has, I guess, taken on in the last 3 months of the year. So Q3 of this calendar year, not fiscal year. And what you can see is that we had 65 intakes during this period of time. So this is through September 30th. So over 3 months, approximately 21, 22 individuals a month, which is in alignment with what we've seen in previous monthly reports. The distribution by race and ethnicity is also very similar, with the intakes being dominated by Black youth for 60% and 23% for the Latinx youth, as well as the smaller percentage for the Anglo and Asian other youth. Distribution by sex is also very comparable to what we've seen in the past. Again, dominated by men. 94% are young men, 6% are young women. The majority of youth are 16 to 17 years of age. There are a handful of younger youth at 13 and 14, but again, dominated by the 16 and 17-year-olds. As far as the arrest location goes, there are a good number of locations that have a handful of intakes taking place. There were 12 intakes from the Antioch PD, It looks like there's a handful more from the ranch as well as Pittsburgh and Richmond PDs. Otherwise, they're broadly distributed across many law enforcement agencies in the county. When we look at the number of intakes by the number of offenses, what we can see is that about a third of individuals that were intake had just one charge, 11% and 14%, and even another 10% had 2 to 4 charges, with another smaller percent having more charges or court commitments. When we move on to results of the matter, we can see that of these 18 or 65 youth, 18 of them are pending in custody, and another 10 are pending release. There are a number that are at the ranch. And I'm not quite sure what the ranch circumstance is. Melvin, maybe you could give us some more detail on that. I would assume that's some kind of instance that occurred at the ranch or interaction that occurred there.
Yes, so 778 is just a change of circumstance. So it could be anything from, a medical issue, allergy, or something like that, where they have to go back to the hall before they can get cleared by a doctor.
Right, great, thank you.
Yep.
So fundamentally, what we can see is that most individuals are pending either in custody or released, and or in at the ranch or on courtesy hold. Moving forward from there, the average number of days between the disposition and the date the individual entered the program is 11 days for youth that were on home supervision, 6 days for assignment to the ranch. Two youth had, actually, that's not 2 youth. That would be, there were some youth that were assigned to the Briones Youth Academy that awaited 2 days. And then there are no individuals at this point that are pending release. We don't have that information at this point. So there is one individual who was ordered to placement, but had not been placed at the time that this data was prepared, and that's where the NA comes from. And then this is a new graphic that was requested that speaks to the count of individuals by their race and ethnicity and the number of times that they had been previously admitted to the hall. So what you can see here is of this 65 number of intakes, I would say 27 youth had no prior interaction with the hall. And that distribution of individuals is heavily skewed towards the African-American youth and the Latinx youth, okay? So that's, again, that's the group that has no prior interaction. But when we move on to see 1 and more prior interactions, we can see a similar pattern with the African-American and the Latinx youth being having higher counts here. So individuals with 1 prior history of interaction with the hall, that is a total of 10, but 70% of them are African-American youth. The individuals that had 2 previous interactions with the hall, that is 9, and over half of them are African-American youth. Similar pattern with 3 or more interactions with criminal or the hall, where 60% are of African-American background. So there's clearly a disparity in those youth that are coming in or being referred to probation as it relates to the number of times they've had an interaction with the hall and their race. And then, let's see, otherwise moving forward, there is one youth, actually, of the 4 youth that had more than 10 interactions, 3 of them are of African-American background. Okay. So I hope that information is getting at what folks wanted. We will continue, the probation department will continue to provide this information again on a quarterly basis. We'll do the 4th quarter of 2021 at our January meeting. The next set of graphs, actually it's just a chart, and I'm not going to go through the details of this, but by intake month and by ID, these are the arrest charges for individuals that were referred to the hall. And so among those 65 youth, you can see what the charges are over time for all those youth, the number of charges, as well as whether or not a petition was filed, and whether or not they got transferred in or out of county. If there are multiple records for the same PID, which is the probation ID for the youth, multiple records, the same intake month and day, that's multiple charges for that youth. So in this case here, and the slide that Nick has up, or that Nicole has up, we have one African-American youth in July who has 3 charges for carjacking, willfully fleeing and eluding a peace officer with regard to safety, and no additional arresting charges. So these are the 3 arrest charges, and then the petition charges are over to the right there. And here's another example on July. In July, again, the PID number 4, this youth had only 1 charge. It was a DJJ hold for a court commitment. So I have nothing more specific to say about the arrest charges. Does anybody have any questions about these? Again, these are for all the 65 youth, all the charges or upon their referral to probation. Okay, until January. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Denise. So I think the next slide is I can discuss. And yes, Nicole, if you could get to the Mount McKinley. Yes, thank you. So for these slides, they discuss the July, August, and September intakes. And we are looking here at the number of students who came in with IEPs for special education, with 504 accommodation plans for their disabilities, and students who came in with neither plan, as well as looking at the students who came in as English language learners. For our school departments, when we receive students who require these supports, for us, it's putting services in place in the schools when they go to school. So again, I think everybody has access to the data, but if there are any questions, I could certainly answer questions about the July, August, and September intake numbers for the specialized services. See everybody on this side. I don't see any questions. So then the last update is the Sheriff's Office update, and Melissa, I believe you were going to report out on data from the Sheriff's Office.
Sure. So For the last few months, we've been able to take the data off of that we publish on our website, our contemporaneous arrest log data for the sheriff's office. And we've been able to export that data into an Excel spreadsheet format. However, for each month, so about 30 days worth of data, there's over 3,000 lines in the spreadsheet to compile and analyze. So we have the data, but getting that data into any type of format similar to what Denise presented for the juvenile data is quite a bit different just based on the volume of data. And in our department, we have two crime analysts for our department of 1,100 employees. And so we don't have the capabilities right now in our department to be able to analyze that data and format it into a visual representation or to get it, I think, to what the committee is looking for. And so I wanted to bring that up today and see if we have any resources available as a committee to analyze this raw data that we have to put it into a format that's more usable for what this group is looking for. And that's about all the update I have. I can refer everyone back to the visual, a way to visually see our data is to go onto our website. And I can share that link again here in a minute with the group. I've shared it on previous meetings, and basically it's presented as a PDF file or just a non-working file, but we do have that same information in a spreadsheet. So we have it where it is able to be manipulated and formulated, but we just at this point don't have the manpower in order to do that. So maybe down the road with this group, I know getting the data is a big hurdle, and we're also going to try to get this from other law enforcement agencies, but then actually doing something with the data, I think, is probably the next step. And maybe we can talk a little bit more about that.
I would just add, I feel like this is something that the Burns Institute can help with. I'm speaking out of turn because I am not, and I know I've said this before and some of you have seen it demonstrated, and I hope you forgot, but I'm not the data person at the Burns Institute. But we do have folks who specialize in doing that stuff. And I'm not having spoken with them about their time and capacity, I think it's something that we could probably pull off. I would just need to have the conversations with them about sort of when they can expect something, what the turnaround time would be, and sort of getting a sense from them of, how much lead time they would need and so on and so forth. But I think that's something that we should be able to do.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm able to get a collection of data or a spreadsheet of data monthly, and that pulls together everything from the previous month. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, the goal is to provide a quarterly report. So to go along with the same time frame as the rest of the reports. But thank you for bringing that up, and hopefully we can talk about that more moving forward. But that's all I have on that update.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Christopher. So I'm gonna keep us moving through the agenda. The next agenda item, and actually, Melissa, if you could put the website or the link to the website in the chat, I think that would be helpful. I think the next agenda item, Director Bachikis asked me to present that she has drafted and sent an email to the CBOs informing them of this website and letting them know what data is posted. So I don't know if there's any more information people want to say about that, or it sounds like Melissa, you spoke a little bit about the website data as well. But the message here is that the information has been shared with the CBOs this week.
And I'd also like to add that we did submit a blurb to all of the supervisors' offices to be included in their newsletters, just sharing the excitement we all have with the new data reporting site on our jobs webpage. So hopefully we will see some of that being circulated fairly soon.
Thank you. So our next agenda item, number 7, update on community listening session. And Shala Bonner will present this.
That would be me. Unfortunately, I don't have an update right now. I still need to meet with the chair of the community engagement subcommittee, and I believe with Chris, to see, when we want to have that session, and then also what we want to talk about in that session. So unfortunately, I don't have an update, but my goal is to have that meeting with the chair next week.
Yeah, and I have one, right? I have an update. So the Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee met earlier this month, as you guys all know, and basically, right, we've been sort of kicking this ball back and forth between the two subcommittees, which is maybe not completely ideal, but it's necessary because it's hard to bring these two subcommittees together all in one place outside of a quarterly meeting, say, to have that conversation. So I really appreciate this group for taking the lead as far as, what data we have that we can present and what we think, we can probably show people there, as well as, Shayla getting the word out initially, like preliminarily, right, about us potentially having this session, and getting a sense from her that folks are interested, like, let's do it sooner rather than later, and it should probably be in the evening, because I just took that directly to the Community Engagement and Funding Subcommittee, and we started throwing out some dates. And as far as that goes, they were pushing. So at first it was, we should do the first week of December, or we should do the first week, or we should do the week of January 10th. And, the more we started talking about sort of the preparation that we wanted to do and the coordination that we wanted to do, not even just between these two subcommittees, but also as far as developing or establishing community partners, right? And getting some sense from CBOs as to what they would want to see and what they have seen in terms of what's effective in sort of spaces like this, and getting people that information, and wanted to make sure that we were doing our due diligence to collect that sort of information and to design this listening session to some degree based on that feedback. Just realizing December 6th or whatever it was going to be right around the corner, like right at the time that all that information was coming in. And so the CEF is proposing the week of January 10th to have the subcommittee, the listening session. And Ronell has graciously agreed to be the CEF rep, right? So just like Shayla has agreed to be the rep for this subcommittee at that listening session, Ronell of the RJLB, the CEF, and Health Right 360 is going to be, the rep and the co-host, from that subcommittee. So those are, I think, the updates. Definitely thinking around 6 p.m. sometime that week. Have a little bit of time to sort of finalize the date. We know that we probably don't want to do a Monday or Friday, right? So probably Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, sometime that week of the 10th of January around 6 p.m. And I think that's all the updates that I have. And I'm just waiting on folks to reach out to their contacts at the various CBOs to get some feedback. And actually, I'm forgetting to say that it was brought to our attention that we might want to do something a little bit different, maybe a little unconventional as far as some of the messaging, right? To have it not just be talking at people with numbers and graphs that look intimidating. Somebody mentioned potentially doing some spoken word or having some element of something like that just to be a part of this, so that folks are getting sort of the messaging and the narrative around what this data is and what we're looking to do. And so I think the hope, and probably as folks continue to have conversations with community members and local CBOs, I think the hope is going to be that there are ways to bring this information to life beyond, again, things that can be intimidating to folks like me who do not math. So we'll keep that in mind, and hopefully, if folks have ideas about ways that we can do that, that are interesting, that are engaging, that leave, strong takeaways on folks who are going to attend this, so that they, leave it understanding why they were there, having gotten, good information and, a strong impression of, what the information is and what could be done with it, or at least what they'd like to see or what they'd like to know from here. That would be a win.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments about the community listening session? Again, thank you, Christopher, for that information. Item number 8, update on letter to the DA formally requesting data.
Excuse me, I just wanted, Cheryl had her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry, Cheryl. Yes. Cheryl,
I'm headed. I got to go into this appointment, so I'll make it quick. And you seem to be rushing through this little agenda, so I might want to say you just take a deep breath.
Very good.
Yeah, there you go. Here it is that I want to say to you. We talked about this last time, so I'm going to say it this time. And we said that we spend some time this meeting talking about what Christopher just mentioned. I asked the question and I put it on the floor, and so I'm going to put it on the floor again this time. This listening station, what is it that is that we're trying to achieve, right? What is the question? Why are we giving the information? What is it that we want people to walk away with? Why are we giving them the information? We're not just dumping data to dump data. It's more than just being transparent, and that will inform the preparation of the information. So it's one thing to say that, hey, we're going to have a spoken word, but this data is very serious data. So it is not just to entertain people. It's not just to just give information to give information. The public wants this information for a reason. And when they're asking us who sit on this oversight body to represent them, they're asking for reasons. So, this body needs to come to a realization that we had a charge to reduce the amount of Black and brown bodies that are flowing through this system. So we're giving this information for a reason. So I'm asking again, and I'm actually compelling this committee to think about the reason we're presenting this data, and we need to present it in such a way that it represents more than just numbers. There's people behind these numbers. There's family behind these numbers. There's lives behind these numbers. There's lives that are being destroyed, but there's also lives that need to be rebuilt. So that is why I said it the last time, and I say it again, that it needs to be presented in a way that these numbers aren't just black and white, black numbers on pieces of white paper or on a screen. So please just take some time and let's not rush through this agenda again. You're already ready ahead of schedule. I get it. But take some time to discover what it is that we're trying to achieve in this listening session. Listening means exactly that. Yes, we're going to give them information, but we're going to listen to what the public wants to know from that information and what it is they're trying to tell us about what we're missing and why we keep having so many Black and brown bodies in this criminal legal system. So please just take some time and talk about that. And then Earlier, yes, I couldn't speak to you guys because my reception was low. So I'm gonna say what I said the last time. And I know, sir, you weren't in these meetings when we were having this discussion. And I know that Tamisha is going to help co-lead the meeting with the mayors. So I'm going to, again, I raised my objection before and I'm gonna raise it again. I get it, and I have a lot of respect for Ms. Becky, but she understood when I raised my objection to and my concerns to why I want to make sure that you have people of color leading this conversation. It is one thing to have people who are not impacted by this criminal legal system on these committees and these oversight body. It is quite another to have them leading this discussion about the data that is affecting the Black and brown and indigenous and poor communities and communities stricken by impoverishment. But then to have that conversation in front of these high level communities, especially the mayors, it needs to be led by the same people who are impacted by these criminal legal systems. And if that means you need to take more time and dig deeper to find out who needs to lead these conversations with the same passion and the same reverberation that's happening in our communities, then you take a few more minutes. Did this 2 minute, who can do it? Raise your hand. If not, okay, we're gonna put somebody else. No, sir. No, we take more time. If you're gonna put us in front for everything else, then you put us in front of these mayors, and you have us tell these mayors how our communities are infected. We don't just get in front when he's low level. We get in front when he's high level, and these mayors are the most high level in our counties, and they also have the budget to quit hiring these sheriffs and sheriff's deputy to keep perpetrating these kind of criminal actions against these Black and brown bodies. I've registered my concerns. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Cheryl. And I do apologize if it feels like I'm rushing through the agenda. Sometimes at the end of the day, and I do move fast, so I appreciate you pointing that out. And I certainly, would offer up the opportunity for anybody else to chime in or to provide us with some of their thoughts. I certainly understand what you're saying about the listening session and making those the most meaningful, use of everybody's time and really being deliberate in what we want to get from that. And then the other part, what I'm hearing you say is, did we want to open up the discussion again or reopen it up to talk about who would co-present with Tamisha at the mayor's conference? I know Director Vachikis is willing to do it. But I also know that there's, it's important to have conversations about it. So if I believe it's absolutely appropriate, we're allowed to go back to that agenda item. And if there is anybody who has any more thoughts on it or any more ideas, what I do know is the importance of getting to that meeting. I know you all took a lot of time and it was a lot of work to get on that agenda. And I know putting together the information was a lot of work. So absolutely, we want it to go as best as possible. And so I will stop talking for a minute and I'll open it up for others to chime in.
Nick, Shayla's hand is up.
Yes, Shayla. Sorry for saying your name.
No problem. I just had a question for Chris. In the community engagement subcommittee, have they talked or done any kind of polling about what it is the community wants to know or gain from a community listening session? Just curious.
Yeah, so in terms of polling, I don't know that there's been polling as much as, the openness to information that comes up, say in public comment. But Jeff and Ronell in particular, maybe some others, are supposed to be reaching out to the organizations that they want to make sure that we're hearing from in terms of, again, how this is designed and how it's set up. And so they should be, that's part of what they're supposed to be doing, right? Is getting insight directly from folks who are used to hosting community in these ways, discussing these types of issues, to say, okay, what do you suggest? What do you know that community wants to hear, wants to know? And how should this information best be presented? What should be the sort of layout, or how should the agenda look, to be most effective in terms of what they've seen and what they've done in the past? So I will be reaching out to them for sure to try to make sure that those conversations are happening and that we get the feedback.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that'll be very important as we start to put the agenda and things together, because you have some folks who are numbers people, you have some folks who are more visual, so they want to see the graphs, but we got to kind of cater to all, since it is community. So yeah, I was just curious about that. Thank you.
And on the subject of this, the mayor's conference, I would just point out that I don't think it's absolutely necessary. If it becomes an issue, I don't know that. I think what we were trying to do is have the co-chairs do it, right? I don't know that. I'm not familiar with. I am sort of familiar with it, but I'm not clear on if both of the, I don't think both of the co-chairs are representing this particular subcommittee. They just happen to be the co-chairs of the larger body. So it doesn't seem to follow that it's absolutely necessary that somebody on the data subcommittee do it. Now, obviously, folks on the data subcommittee are the most used to seeing this on a regular basis and talking about it. But, in the event that we feel like maybe the right person isn't in this particular Zoom call, that may be something worth discussing. I'll just remind folks, we have a good week for that person to be ready to do that. So also, to keep that in mind as well.
Thank you, sir. Did anybody else have any thoughts or comments?
If it's helpful, I can certainly list out or share now who are all the members that sit in the CBO seats, in case there are folks that may be just unfamiliar with who all from community representative roles who are out there that might be worth considering as a co-presenter. Would that be helpful for folks?
Cheryl did put a heart on her, so I think that's a yes and a thumbs up.
Okay.
In the comments. Yeah.
So we have Tamisha Walker, Jeff Landau, Michael Pearson, Shayla Bonner, Stephanie Medley, Renelle Ellis, Cheryl, and forgive me, Cheryl, if I'm pronouncing your last name incorrectly, Sidhu. Apollo Sose, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Noe Udino. Forgive me, I am not the best at pronouncing names, so please take that as a charge against my head, not my heart. So of the names that I just listed, are folks having other thoughts of potential recommendation?
I just think we should talk to them, period. I know that Stephanie and I usually do a lot of the talking, which is why I didn't volunteer. And we have new people who they usually don't volunteer because I don't know if they're just uncomfortable or they just aren't used to volunteering, but it's worth asking them to volunteer, to step up. And I think it's worth inviting them to step up, especially because Tamisha's used to taking lead, so it's not like they won't be with a strong person. But I do think it's worth They spoke up when they asked to be a part of this oversight body, and they spoke very well during the interviews. So I think it is worth asking.
Thank you, Cheryl. I'm wondering what the process would be like. I am understanding there isn't another meeting before that mayor's conference. So if we weren't going to make the final decision at today's meeting, how would that work as far as having the whole group consensus or having, does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, so there wouldn't be a final decision made today. If anything, we just get some names or a name, and both between my office and Chris, we can talk to those folks offline to see if they have interest in presenting, what support that they may need in order to be ready and prepared. And we could, make that happen for them, or at least support them in any way we can around that.
And I know, I know I'm tempted to make those jokes about when you're not at a meeting, but I know that Director Bachikis would be, she's willing to do it, but she also understands that if she's not. So I think that she probably could be as flexible as ever and just would need to know, ahead of the meeting, whether she would be the selected one or if there was another person who was going to stand in with Tamisha. But she did give me that authority to talk about how flexible she would be. So does that sound like the next best step, to reach out and see if one of those folks is willing to? And if not, we fall back to Becky, the Cheekies.
That sounds reasonable. Yeah.
Okay.
So just that I heard you correctly, reach out. Who are we reaching out to? You can certainly use Becky as a backup, but then who?
Yeah. Well, let's decide that, because I heard you list the names and there wasn't a lot of names on there, but so I guess that maybe we could talk, this group could decide who do we want to reach out to, who would be the right people to check in with, and before we went to Plan B with Becky Bachikis.
So Miss Patrice, all the people you named have lived experience dealing with the criminal legal system. Is one of the reasons they were picked, almost all of them, one of the reasons they were picked for the oversight body. I listened to them on their interviews. And so this is why I just strongly believe we need to reach out for them and give them an opportunity to do it. If they are, for whatever reason, unwilling or not able to do it, I will talk to Miss Stephanie and then and see if she will do it or I will do it. I just feel really strongly about this, period. And I know you guys probably don't understand it, but I do. I understand why the presence is necessary. So this is where I stand on it.
And the one thing I want to add to that, I hear you loud and clear, Cheryl, is also balancing around the amount of time we have at this moment. So even of the names listed, if there are folks who you think at the top of your head, yes, please reach out to these two, these three, what have you, and see where they stand. That would be really helpful. Yeah. So we're trying to balance it against time as well.
Okay, I'm just sitting in my doctor's office, so I can't tell you that right now.
Sure.
But I can get with you or Christopher after this and let you know that.
Thank you, Patrice. Thank you, Cheryl. It sounds like we have a plan. It sounds like we will check in with the folks that you listed that are not here present at the meeting to check in with. I guess what I want to make sure is the committee okay with going with Plan B should, or am I hearing that Cheryl, you would recommend yourself as being the co-presenter I guess it would be good to have this committee at least know, where are we going with this and how are we gonna make that choice? So it sounds like Cheryl and Patrice, you'll get together and talk through who we'll check in with. And then Patrice, you'll get back to the group. Again, I'm not quite sure how the group communicates, but I know that it would be important to circle back to this group and at least let everybody know who was identified. Right? Does that make sense?
Well, I'm not
Yep.
sure we'll have time to get back to the full group.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would just say that I think the way you just summed it up there at the end was what Cheryl was going for, right? So maybe reach out to one or two of these folks from this list. If they can't do it, that Cheryl would be willing to do it. And when you asked that, she did give a thumbs up. So I'm assuming that that's how that should be interpreted, and she can give a negative emoji right now if it's not, like, if I'm wrong about that. But I think that's where we stand.
Thank you, sir. Okay. I think Cheryl's giving an affirmation that that works. Okay. Okay, so with that, I'm going to take us to the next agenda item. Agenda item number 9. Is an update on the pilot for police trainings on adolescent cognitive development. And Patrice and Melissa, you were going to talk about this?
yes.
I
So
think
during our
we had
last
number
meeting-
8, the district attorney letter, I think was.
Oh, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I not
Well-
speak? I'm sorry. That is my item. I can speak to that. So agenda item number 8, Director Bachikis has sent a letter to District Attorney Diana Becton requesting information from her organization for this group. The information she requested was around the demographics for each of the youth and adults whose charges were referred to the DA's office. Again, with a focus on data around police arrest charges, detentions, charges brought to court, plea deals, and disposition and sentencing. She did send this out earlier this week, making that request. So are there any questions about that? Would you guys like me to share the letter in the notes so folks have that? Thank you, sir. I will share the letter in the notes, and I will pause if there are any questions or comments about the request to Diana Becton. Okay, that was agenda item number 8. Now back to number 9, update on the pilot for police trainings and adolescent cognitive development.
Yeah, so during our last meeting, we talked about, or last several meetings actually, we talked about approaching various police chiefs or police departments to gauge their interest in having a training for their officers around adolescent development and police contact. We identified one potential training from Strategies for Youth. Their training is called Policing the Brain, which had a lot of success as an example of the type of training and the type of commitment that would be required of the various police departments. So I had the opportunity to reach out to Chief Sapal, who is the police chief for Martinez PD. Also Chief Rahman, I believe I'm saying his last name correctly, San Pablo Police Department, and then also Interim Chief Moorfield of Antioch PD. I also reached out to Lieutenant Cassie Wilkerson, who was our former ceasefire coordinator out in East and Central County, who is with the Pittsburgh Police Department. So far of those 4, I did hear back from Chief Sapal and Chief Rahman, who are both very interested in engaging around this idea of supporting training for adolescent development. So I'm going to, we are in the process of scheduling meetings to really talk that through a little bit more and also gauge what other training interests they may have. I'm hoping to hear back from, I'm not quite sure if I'll hear back from Interim Chief Moorfield, given, that's quite a bit of a shakeup to fill up the big shoes of Chief Brooks there. And then I'm hoping to hear back from Lieutenant Wilkerson over at Pittsburgh PD. I know that they've done a lot of community engagement work and have done a lot of work in the past working with you directly. So I'm hopeful that they would be interested in this particular topic as well. So after I have conversations with them, hopefully I will have more to share about potential next steps or what they may need in terms of guidance from the committee or what it is that they would like to see or what it is we all may want to see in terms of engagement with them. Oh, one other thing too, which I'm sure Melissa will probably talk about, is that the one training that I mentioned was just an example of it. Is not one that is necessarily quote unquote endorsed by this committee or this body. So that there was some conversation about what would be the most appropriate type of training and how do you kind of gauge that conversation with the police department. So we'll certainly leave that open, and if others have suggestions as well that we may be unaware of, we certainly welcome that. We do know that one strategy to at least encourage police departments to participate or to be interested in a particular training offer is whether or not it's actually post-certified. So these are trainings that offer credit hours that officers typically need on an annual or however on a periodic basis. And so though at the moment, my understanding is that the training, the policing, the brain training is not post-certified, but there's potential interest in getting it post-certified. When I communicated with Chief Sapal from Martinez PD, he mentioned that when he was actually at Richmond PD many moons ago, he knew of school resource officers that went through the same exact training and spoke very, very highly of it. It's good to know that there's some familiarity with trainings around training for police officers around adolescent development. So hopefully there will be more to come around that. And that's it for me.
Thank you.
And if I could just add to that what Patrice said. So going back to the post certification, I mentioned that in the last meeting that it is beneficial for officers to attend post-certified training, but it's also beneficial to departments because oftentimes that training is reimbursable to certain, based on a designated level, the department can actually get reimbursed for training expenses, which is always a plus. And so I did a search on the Post website. I did not see any training that they're currently offering near at all to the training that that you presented last meeting, Patrice. So the group that currently puts on the Policing the Teen Brain, they have taught in California and throughout California, but it doesn't look like their course is post-certified. And so there's a couple different ways that we can go about that process. And our department, being the sheriff's office, and because we have a regional training center, we do a lot of work with post and developing post courses. And so just to quickly describe what that process is, we could do it a couple different ways. So our training staff can petition post to develop a course. And by doing that, they just have to identify that there's a need out there, that course doesn't currently exist. And then they go through a process of presenting a course outline and what the course would look like and instructors and things like that. And then once post takes a look at it and they approve that course, then they would determine what reimbursable plan it is, and then it gets put on the post website as a training course that's offered. And so it can be put on a calendar and people can sign up for the course that way. So that would be the first option, and that would be if our an agency, I'll just use my agency as an example, if they decide that they want to put on that course. And so we would want to identify some individuals that can instruct that course and put together a course outline. A second option is the sheriff's office can contact posts and seek approval for this other group. I forgot the name of it, but the one that's doing policing the teen brain. We can basically get a course approved for them through post. But the problem with that is if they have any proprietary training materials, then it would not be their own materials any longer. So that with an independent training company, they may want to hold on to that material. And so we could do that, but then their training materials become part of the sheriff's office training materials. So my guess is they probably wouldn't be interested in that option, but we could certainly reach out to them for that. And then the last option would be for them, their training company, to reach out to post directly and solicit or apply to have their course be post approved. And since we have a lot of contacts with post, we can help facilitate that process. So those are just some options. If we want to use this particular company, I think my recommendation is that we reach out to them and make a suggestion that they become post certified, whether they want some assistance with that or if they want to seek that on their own, that would be great. Because then if they're post certified, they can teach up and down the state on their own. Or if we have any in-house instructors in the county that we think could put on this type of training to our officers, just based on some experts that we have in the county, we could certainly put together our own course and present it regionally.
Thank you, Melissa. Are there any comments on that? Can I just ask, what is the timeline for making that decision, whether it's bringing in an outside agency or building it in-house within the county?
As far as through post,
yeah,
it's an ongoing cycle. So we can do it at any time. We can present an idea to post, and then there's a few different layers of approval process, but we can start that process at any time. If you're asking how long it takes, it probably just depends on how quickly we put together if we're building a course outline or if another agency or company is presenting their course outline.
So Melissa, I have one question. When you're speaking about in-house training, as I recall, Strategies for Youth had a Train the Trainer program. Were you speaking about that, drawing on their Train the Trainer program to have in-house training? Or were you thinking of not using their program and starting from scratch and doing a new program from the beginning rather than Train the Trainer?
So if it's a Train the Trainer, we could certainly do that. My guess is they would still probably want, and I don't know without reaching out to them, if they do a Train the Trainer course, is it still proprietary material that they want to, if we send our people to train and then they train the agency or people at their agency, is it still under the umbrella of their training? And that I just have to ask. What I meant, but either could certainly work. One of the things that I was thinking is, do we have, I know this group was one that was presented as offering what sounds like really good training, but do we have subject matter experts in the county that we could bring in and create our own training in the county? And then also maybe include some very specific resources that we have here in the county that we could specifically direct our officers to. If you have this, here's a specific county resource that you can reach out to. But obviously that's a lot more work to create a program like that. But if we had a group that was interested in putting that together, I've got the training folks on my side. And then if we have other experts from other fields that would be willing to come in, we could certainly put something like that together.
And then the idea would be that we would, I think, going to the next step, as I usually do, is we would build in our own evaluation of the effectiveness of that program.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Great, thank you.
Any other comments, questions for Melissa? So this is not an action item that we need to make a decision about, but is there anything, Melissa, that you need from this group to move forward?
No, other than, we can start reaching out to the company that does policing the teen brain to see if they're interested in becoming post-certified. That would be obviously the easiest course of action. I don't know what the costs are associated with that training, but oftentimes outside private companies, especially those outside the state, do tend to be a little bit more expensive. So we could get an idea of what it would cost to bring them in and do a training that we could offer to, to agencies in the county. And we could start that way and see if it's even a cost feasible option. And then if it seems like it's too high, if they're not interested in becoming post-certified, then we can look at other options down the road.
Yeah. That seems to make sense. And at the same time, maybe folks in this group thinking about in-house folks or organizations or people, I guess, who could help build this if we decided, if you came back with the costs being extreme and the conversation went into the direction of building it in-house, basically. So maybe people could come back next time thinking about that if there's anything.
Perfect. Then I'll plan to do that and report back at the next meeting. I'll reach out to this particular company and get some more details and more information from them.
Very good. Thank you, Melissa. So any other comments on item 9 before we move on? I do know that, well, I'm going to pause. I'm practicing my pause time. There was I did want to go back in the chat. There was a comment about the last agenda item asking about the letter that went to Ms. Becton that was requesting the data. Did it also include the names of the, I think, district attorneys overseeing each case? And with the addition that there are huge discrepancies in the prosecutorial practices among the different DAs. So the answer is, in the letter, it doesn't specifically ask for the names of the people overseeing the case, or the DAs overseeing the case, or ADAs. And I'm wondering, is that something that we want to reach back out and request? Is that, or do we want to wait for a response and then reach back out with that next layer of data once we have a commitment for this layer of data? So I'll pause a minute and let people talk about that.
Well, given what was shared last meeting, I believe was a representative from the DA's office that already kind of gave us a heads up of some of their, some of the data limitations that they are likely to expect when they receive the request. I think it's best that we wait and see what we get, do a deep dive and review of that as a committee and see what gaps overall from the information that we get, we would want to get more answers from or on, where we can do a little bit more follow-up if needed.
Any other thoughts about that? Having them identify the names of the case managers or the DAs?
I'll just say, speaking from probation, if we got a request like that, we wouldn't share that information of each specific deputy probation officer overseeing specific cases. I don't even think county council would even allow something like that to even be shared. And I'm not sure what the sheriff, if they would share information about specific deputies.
Well, yeah, it depends. I mean, a lot of our reports are subject to public release, but the only other thing I would add in there is oftentimes during the course of a case, the case gets reassigned several times to different district attorneys. Some of them, are cases that are specified that the same attorney will carry it all the way through, but others you may have, one attorney that does the preliminary examination and then another if it goes to trial. So I think that data might end up being a little more complex than how it initially comes across.
Thank you. Thank you.
And if I could add one thing, I think that's the best part about us receiving the data is for us to identify any trends, if any, or patterns that can be identified that'll allow us to see what might be an issue that is more systemic. And so without having the initial information that we've already requested, well, at least I just think that's a first good step for us to really even know where there may be some disparities or some discrepancies or whatever the case may be. We just don't know that yet, and we haven't seen a set of trends just yet that can be quantified. So I think if we stay focused on that, that will help illuminate where there may be some potential gaps and opportunities for us to address that more directly.
Thank you, Patrice. Any other thoughts on that? I appreciate just bringing that kind of to the committee, just to be cognizant that those are things we should be thinking about when looking at data as well. But Melvin, I do understand that when we're talking about specific people, sometimes that makes it harder to share the data because it becomes a little different. But okay. Ms. Bates, did you have any more comments on that, or?
No, it's just something that I am aware of just from my own experience of watching my son go through the system in Contra Costa, and it's certainly a concern of mine, but maybe the committee is not in a position yet where they can either request that data and get it successfully or analyze it. But I am very convinced that that type of data would be valuable in understanding the discrepancies.
Yeah, well, thank you for adding that. So I think I've been bouncing around a little bit. I think we got through item 9. Agenda item 10 is next steps. So next steps.
I have that, Nick, and I can just sort of reiterate what has come forward from this meeting would be that at our next meeting, there would be updates, obviously, on the mayor's conference and how that went. There would be updates and preparation, I hope, for the community listening session. There would be an update from Melissa surrounding the sheriff's office interaction with strategies for youth and post certification. And that's what I have. I do believe there was also one other item that came forward last month. And Emmylou, I think this came forward as a request from you that we were not able to add on to this month's agenda, but I think we should be able to get that next month. And I just wanted to let you know that we haven't forgotten that. I believe it is about, let's see.
Is the racial
Nicole,
justice?
do you
Act?
remember this?
Yeah,
Oh,
the
it was the Racial Justice Action or Act, and we don't have that expertise, I think. You inquired about the plan on implementing the Racial Justice Act for the DA and the public defender. And at the last meeting, Becky recommended that we agendize this for the next meeting. And I'm not sure that our body has the knowledge yet on that act to take a position on it at this point. So I guess the question is, do we want to move in some direction about that or bring it up for the agenda next month?
Is there potentially somebody we could reach out to enter the meeting, to present on it, or to sort of discuss it and bring us up to speed on it, such that if a discussion needs to be held about any particular aspect of it, we could do it at that time?
That seems like a reasonable question and ask. I'm not sure who that would be at this point. Is this an act that Burns is familiar with, Christopher?
Oh, I'm pretty sure I know somebody who is, but I need to check and make sure that that is indeed the case, and that she would have the time to either speak to it herself or to to prep me to do it. So I can follow up on that as well. I mean, she's the person that I would need to talk to about the data stuff anyway. So, clearly we will be commiserating a bit.
Does that seem reasonable for folks that we touch base then in the next couple of weeks, Chris, before our next meeting, and we either agendize it or put it off?
Sounds good. Yeah, that's a good place to start. Certainly if other people arise who, could take it in that, interim period, I wouldn't turn that down either, but sure.
So that would then be all that I would have for the next steps, which would really fundamentally lead into next month's agenda.
Very good. And the last agenda item is actually about the next meeting. Before we adjourn, we need to decide, it looks like the next meeting is actually scheduled on Thanksgiving Day. And there on the agenda, there's a line to consider December 2nd from 3 to 5 for the next meeting, which would mean canceling the November meeting and canceling the December 23rd meeting. So I think the request is next meeting being December 2 from 3 to 5. So does that sound Does anybody want to meet on Thanksgiving? I shouldn't joke. But I guess I know this is not an action item where we're voting, but is everybody in favor of making that change, not having the meeting Thanksgiving, but meeting December 2nd for the next meeting and then canceling that meeting on December 23rd?
And December 2nd, just so that you know, is the Thursday following Thanksgiving week.
Okay.
And then the idea would be that we would have the early December meeting, cancel the existing December 23rd meeting. So we would drop a meeting and then start back up again in January.
Are there any other subcommittee meetings that already take place on that day? Or is it wide open for?
It's
Good
open.
question.
Okay.
Looking at my calendar, it's open, I think. The only thing I would point out, and I mean, somebody please, if you guys see that I'm wrong, please correct me, but I don't see any other subcommittee meetings and I would be there. So I generally have those on my calendar. But the only other thing to point out, especially for myself and I think subcommittee chairs and ORJ staff is to get that agenda out, right? We typically are trying to have agendas finalized the Thursday before so that they can go out the Friday before so that we hit our Brown Act requirements. And that Thursday deadline would be Thanksgiving,
right?
Which means we need to probably try to have our agendas in by at least, I'm guessing, the Wednesday before that, at the very latest. So just flagging that for everyone so that we don't forget and end up, scheduling and then canceling a meeting just because those dates get away from us.
So does that,
Chris?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Does that mean agenda items would be due on the 17th, November 17th, which is Wednesday? That's the Wednesday before, a week before the Thanksgiving.
I'm thinking, sometime I'm thinking something like November 23rd, 24th. It depends on when people are going to be in the office. I don't know if folks are, if most of the folks implicated would be out that whole week. If you all are, I'm not planning on being out the whole week. I wish I could, but that's not the case for me. So I think it just matters sort of when we could get it posted based on getting all the information. If we could get it posted, say the 23rd or 24th, if that's folks are going to be in the office to be able to do that, then that's fine. If not, then we might need to be looking at the week before.
Well, I'll tell you what, I will be in the office on the 23rd. Nicole, I believe will be here too or not, but it doesn't matter. I can take responsibility. Okay, I see that you'll be here. Perfect. So we can do this together. But I can, if you can give me your agenda items by that Friday, the 19th, that will give me a chance to pull it all together. And then Nicole and I can make sure that it's posted on that Tuesday.
Okay.
Well, Denise, I think you have the agenda items for the next meeting.
I do.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of any attachments that.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So yeah, Chris, it's just really for you, just, are we a yay or a nay for a presentation on the Racial Justice Act?
Right on. Okay.
So otherwise, the agenda's done, kind of. So that's why it's so easy for me to sign up for this. So I guess then maybe I want to rephrase this another way. Is there anybody who cannot meet on December 2nd? It appears that we have no conflicting subcommittee meetings.
Nick, by chance, do you know if Becky will be here?
Yes, she's available. On the 2nd, yes.
Perfect. Okay.
Excellent. Well, thank you guys for putting up with me, getting you through the agenda. I appreciate this group a lot. I know the work you guys do is great work. And
We
I,
appreciate you sitting in for Becky and holding us together in her absence. So thank you for your efforts, Nick.
very good. Thank you. Thank you. So if there are no other comments, then we'll adjourn today's meeting. And again, thank you all for this great work you're doing. And if there are anything that, any comments, please feel free to reach out. Me and Becky Bachikis work right in our offices next door. So if there's anything you need us to know, let us know. So with that, thanks everybody and have a good evening.
Great job, Nick.
Thanks, Nick.
Thank you. Thank you.